Toot, toot, toot.
Hello, everyone. We are ready to begin. If we can all be seated.
Okay.
I'm Lisa Penletsam. I'm your chairperson for today. And we'd like to get started because we have a full program. I'd like to recognize a few persons, the Honorable Natalia Wheatley, or Deputy Premier, Honorable Marlon Penn, representative for the 8th District, Honorable Neville Smith was here. He's still here. Okay, good. And Honorable Vincent Wheatley was here earlier, but sends his apologies. Also, we have in our audience, we have Reverend Dr. Keith Lewis, Superintendent, BVI Circuit, Methodist Church. And remotely, we'll have joining us Reverend Nicole Glasgow, Superintendent, Maypen Circuit, Jamaica. And also we have with us Reverend Brian Seymour, Presbyter, Methodist Church. And up front, where she belongs, our cultural icon, Miss Eileen Parsons. And I see several public servants, educators, former educators, other distinguished guests, friends, family, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this book launch. Good to see a full house. And I would like to get started now by asking you to stand for the invocation, if Reverend Glasgow is there.
One, two. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you, you're just a little faint.
Okay, just a second. Is that any better?
Much better.
Okay.
Over
Good
to
evening,
you.
my sisters and brothers, family and friends in the BVI. Greetings to my ministerial colleagues. It gives me pleasure this evening to join you all the way from Jamaica on this very special occasion. The Wheatleys are dear to my family's heart, and thus I could not have declined Dr. Wheatley's request for me to do the invocation at this function. Let me extend congratulations to the family on this tremendous achievement. Let us pray. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening acknowledging your greatness, your power, your might, acknowledging that you created us in your image and gifted us with various talents and abilities. We thank you for bringing us all here to celebrate the achievements of the Wheatleys. We thank you, mighty God, for the wisdom that you have given and the continued inspiration. We thank you for the unwavering commitment and dedication of this family towards education and overall nation building of the British Virgin Islands. We ask, dear Lord, that you will continue to inspire and equip them as they give of themselves in this particular way. We ask, O God, that you will surround us and grace us with the presence of your Holy Spirit. May your Spirit guide the proceedings this afternoon, and may all we do and all we say be done to your honor, to your glory, and to your praise. All this I pray in and through the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and our Savior. Amen and amen.
Okay, you can be seated. So, thank you very much for that. As I mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, we have a full program, so we're going to press on. Here in East End, I don't need any formal introduction. Some of you know me as Bernard's daughter, although I always insist that I am the better looking of the two of us. A few years ago, Teacher Jennie titled me as a child of the home, and I accept that with honor ever since. So here I am a child of the home for those of you who didn't know me, and I am your chairman for today's proceedings. As I said, we have a full program, and I understand that speakers have been given a 3-minute cap to make presentations. Well, I am yet to meet a West Indian who asked to speak for 3 minutes, really speaks for 3 minutes. Yes, you hear what I'm hearing from the politicians. That's just enough time to say hello. So my first executive order is going to be to ask each person to speak for 2 minutes. I fully expecting that you will speak for 5 or more. I would lead by example. I've had more than a sneak preview at both Teacher Jennie's and Teacher Charles's books, Pass It On and Heritage and Hope, respectively. Other than the fact that the authors are what we call in law inextricably bound, as by marriage, I wondered for a brief moment why they decided to launch the 2 books simultaneously. Indeed, at a first glance, the books appear to be of different genres. It only took me a minute to realize that these books are actually inextricably interwoven as well, just as their authors. Both books are underpinned by a passion for the preservation of and respect for Virgin Islands culture. That is why it is appropriate for them to be launched together. In Pass It On, the author begins with a wish for the information in her book to, quote, serve as a cultural link with the past, in order to help us appreciate how our forefathers lived. In Heritage and Hope, the author similarly opens with an acknowledgement of, quote, the rich heritage from which he emerged, grew, and was groomed. I'm pleased to congratulate them both, and I am glad that you are all here to join me in doing the same. To continue this welcome, I would like to ask Mrs. Jacinth Wheatley to now give brief remarks of welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, friends and family. I'm delighted to welcome everyone to this evening's launch of 2 beautifully written pieces of literary art, Heritage and Hope. Now, you know the H's are a little troublesome for some of us who are from some places, but I will try my best. Heritage and Hope, Finding My Purpose in the Virgin Islands Culture, 1938 to 1963 by Dr. Charles Wheatley, and Pass It On, A Treasury of Virgin Islands Folk Remedies by Jennie Wheatley and Lloyd Wheatley. I am Jacinth Wheatley, one of the daughters by law. And on behalf of the family, I extend special welcome to the Deputy Premier and Minister for Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries and Agriculture, Dr. the Honorable Natalio D. Wheatley, the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Marlon Penn, and the 8th District Representative, I was corrected, Honorable Neville Smith, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. And I'd also like to warmly welcome Ms. Eileen Parsons and Dr. Irad and Marcia Potter. Welcome. We feel special that you're able to be here with us, and we look forward to the presentations and remarks for those of you who are on the program. We're also happy that through video conferencing, some very special people are able to greet us from the United States. Those are the granddaughters, Dr. Danielle Wheatley and her sister Ariana Wheatley, and their daughters. They will be joined by their sister, Miss Janelle Wheatley, and her children. We also have from the US, Mr. Edgar Leonard, brother of the author, and past student, Mr. John Wesley Forbes, who will also bring greetings. We're aware, of course, that the temperature in North America currently is ranging from chilly to freezing in some places. And so we extend to all of you some hot bread, tart, open, Wheatley style, open house, door love, to cuddle your spirits and warm your hearts at this time. We are so blessed that you are able to spend this time with us, and we welcome you. I know we're all tired of hearing about the pandemic, and we sometimes question, like the disciple Nathaniel, can anything good come out of it? In a recent conversation with Dr. Wheatley, he acknowledged that it has given him more time to write, and here we have two shining examples of putting the extra time to good use. Heritage and Hope is a descriptive account of the influencing factors and situations that impacted and groomed the author. Candidly written, the book will have you laughing, coughing, and even singing some of the lyrics of the hymns included. As someone who has not lived in the enclave, and this is a word I learned by reading that book, as someone who has not lived in the enclave, I found the book illuminating. It brings to light some of the cultural nuances of this village and is a must-read for persons seeking a better assimilation into this community. It is said that some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. This is a Francis Bacon's quote, also recorded in the Heritage and Hope book on page 140, if you care to look it up. I encourage you to chew and digest this book. And if the case is that Heritage and Hope causes you to cough, then you can try the crab bush or the vervine. Or if it makes you excited, you could try the St. John's wort. And that should calm you down. If you are, constipated, then you can also try senna, and that would fix it. And just so that you don't make any mistake and mistake one for the other and encounter, like Helena, deleterious consequences, you can learn what they look like in the second book being launched today, which is Pass It On, A Treasury of Virgin Islands Folk Remedies by Jennie Wheatley and Lloyd Wheatley. This is a pictorial atlas of the common folk remedies used in this community. I can only describe this book as a catch-all. In addition to the herbs, the ointments, and oils, you can read about why Alberta Frith was called Berta Crutch, and it's not what you think. You could also learn who taught Miss Rosa her midwifery skills and how Laura came to have a baby at the age of 45. When one reads this book, you can hear Teacher Jennie jumping off the pages. The stories and accounts are told in a way that only she can tell them. It is a totally enjoyable book. Now, before I'm told, as I read on page 74 of the Heritage and Hope, you talk too much. You worry me to death. You talk too much. You worry my pet. You just talk too much. Let me continue. To all of you who have come this evening to support Dr., Mrs., and Mr. Wheatley as they launch these beautiful gems, whether you joined virtually or in person, we are truly grateful that you are here. We welcome you. We thank you for your support and encourage you to observe all the current protocols. Please buy the books, continue to be safe, and enjoy the balance of the evening. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome as well and to recognize Dr. Kedrick Pickering, former 7th District representative and a close friend of the Wheatley family. I would like to give Dr. Pickering a chance to catch himself. So I will ask for Honorable Malon Penn, if you would mind giving your remarks. 2 minutes. No more than 5.
I'll try. Pleasant good afternoon. As the former member likes to say, Dr. Pickering, he used to say a lot in the house, seniority should come for something. So I'll yield to him at this time. But I just want to say a pleasant good afternoon again to everyone. And it's a privilege for me to stand here before you and speak on behalf of the Wheatley family and the 2 masterpieces that were written by the Wheatley family. And Dr. Wheatley, don't be jealous, but I have to touch on Teacher Jennie first. And you know, she's a special gem to me. And if I go into that story today, Teacher Jennie will take all my 10 minutes I have. But I really, and of course, she's the masterpiece, Barzy and the Guineps, that all of us grew up on in the Eastern Lala community. And that's still a great seller, a literary seller for Virginlanders. But this book that is written by Teacher Jennie and Lloyd, and I asked Lloyd, I didn't know he was an author. He has his forte into authorship right now. It's timely because as we go through the pandemic and the raging debate between vaccinated and unvaccinated, we have here a lot of discussion about bush and the use of bush and what bush is good for. And I think Teacher Jennie has done a masterful job of outlaying our historic bush, our remedies, that medicine that we get from our bush, and how that could help to cure certain illness and ailments. I don't know how it helps with the pandemic, Teacher Jennie. You'll have to have a special chapter dealing with the pandemic. But I think it's important. I like the fact that she also referenced a lot of the persons from our history, our past. Colin Fred, and I saw on page, what was it, Natalia, page 60, she referenced my grandfather with the snake oil, the shark oil, which I have to go in depth and read up on the shark oil and the benefits of shark oil. But it's important for us to chronicle and catalog our history and our historians and the value that it brought to us as a community and a rich community in terms of the Eastern community. So I want to really commend Teacher Jennie for the work that she's done, and Lloyd. Lloyd said he was just a proofreader. I know he did more than just proofread, but I think he did more than that. But Dr. Wheatley, I really want to commend you. Dr. Wheatley has been on a roll over the past couple of years in terms of his literary writing. This book, I think, is a home run, Dr. Wheatley. I started reading it, and I couldn't stop. With all the things that I have to do, I couldn't stop reading it, Dr. Wheatley, and I believe when I leave here, I'm going to continue down the path in terms of just to learn through his eyes the history of our people. We just celebrated the anniversary of the 1949 March, and Dr. Wheatley also chronicled that in the book, talking about those men and what they fought for and the hope that they provided for us as Virgin Islanders. And it goes straight, and there's a section that speaks to, I thought it was Barry Sale here, but I learned now that it's Harry, Dr. Wheatley. Okay, Harry is just a fictional character. Okay, I just want to make sure on that. But I think it's a book that we need to read, we need to pay attention to it. It really chronicles our history and who we are as Virgin Islanders, and particularly who we are as a Eastern Landlocked people and our community. And there's a book that we're not presenting today, but I wanted to to advertise for, for Dr. Charles Wheatley, the book that speaks to the history of Red Bay. And we're in Red Bay right now. And it's right here, and we need to buy them up. I think this book, for me, sort of encapsulates the whole history and the journey through this community. I'm someone who grew up between Chapel Hill and Parham Town. And one of the things that we were taught growing up is that there are free rites of passage in Eastern, in particularly Parham Town, Eastern Longlow community, that you have to do. You have to jump off a Red Bay Wharf. You have to jump off of the bridge at Beef Island. And you have to swim to Red Rock. I did all three. And I think my son, I told my son, you're a balanced big man for now, but you gotta to be an Eastern man, you have to do all three. And he did the trifecta not too long ago, so he's officially gotten his Eastern card. But I just wanted to say that this book really chronicles the history of this community, the history of Red Bay, what it meant in terms of the relationship between Red Bay and the church, Red Bay and the business community, the fishing community that we were growing up as Virgin, as Eastern Longlow people. And just a good overall read. But I really want to thank the Wheatley family. And we are so blessed in this community to have some of the most prolific writers hailing from this community. In Dr. Wheatley, in Jennie Wheatley, and I see my cousin, Verna Penmal, another prolific writer from this community. We should treasure them. I think I need to encourage and continue to encourage Dr. Wheatley to continue to write. He's done 25 years. We need all the years from, 1963 forward, Dr. Wheatley. So I think that we have the Minister of Education here and Deputy Premier. We have the territorial member, Honorable Smith, who I know is a supporter of this initiative of you writing and chronicling our history and our journey as people in Eastern Longlow community. You have 3 persons from the East. And I think you will have the support from us and continue to move that history, document that history that is so dear to us in the community. We're losing our history. And I want to thank you and Teacher Jennie for the work you've done for documenting this very important chapter in our history. I thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now have, rolling along, right along, Dr. Kedrick Pickering to give some brief remarks. Next.
Good afternoon to everybody. My apologies, got caught up at the office. But it is a distinct pleasure for me to be here as I acknowledge the presence of our Deputy Premier and the Leader of the Opposition and honorees and Territorial at-large member, Honorable Neville Smith, and former everything, Mrs. Eileen Parsons. I believe I have a unique position to speak at a gathering like this afternoon on this occasion, and I'll tell you why. Dr. Wheatley told me that he was inviting mostly family and close friends, and you may wonder where I fit into the whole gamut, but I fit into every aspect of it. Listen carefully. For those of you who don't know, because there are some people in this country say them here I come from Cuba. So for those of you who don't know, and since Dr. Wheatley is putting the record straight, let me also help along in that process. My father was brought here in 1927 when he was age 7 from Cuba by my grandfather Alvin Pickering. My mother, Irene Agatha Fred, was orphaned at a very young age. And as it was in those days, if you lost your mother, you went to live with a family member in the community. My mother grew up with the late teacher, Cornelia, the late Cornelia Wheatley. We used to call her Miss Kumi, affectionately called Miss Kumi. In case you're trying to understand who Miss Kumi was, Miss Kumi is Teacher Charles' grandmother. You get it right. And Miss Kumi, my grandmother, adopted grandmother, used to live right up the hill above where Teacher Charles' parents used to live. And Teacher Charles happened to be the godfather of my brother. So in case you were wondering, my close connection, that's where it all started and has continued ever since. In addition, 1963 happened to be the year that I started my formal education at Long Look. We only had Long Look infant school in those days. We had kindergarten 1 and 2 and class 1 and 2. And then after that, you had to go to the Eastern Primary School, where I went in 1967. The Long Look Methodist Church was not officially open until 1968. And so before that, you had to go trot along from Long Look to come to church at Eastern, where I had my formal and formative Sunday school education. So I was actually christened at Eastern Methodist Church. And for that reason, in case you don't know, let me tell you also, I got married at the Eastern Methodist Church just to make sure that I had that continuity. I want to tell you a little bit more. So Teacher Charles and my mother were always very close in their relationship because my mother was a teacher, in case you didn't know. And she and Teacher Charles, and I have the liberty to say Teacher Charles and Teacher Jennie for those of you who might wonder why I'm doing that. And they maintained that relationship right throughout. But in 1972, when Teacher Charles and Teacher Jennie returned back home, I was at the high school. He became the assistant principal, and during my years at the high school, both of them taught me. Teacher Charles taught me in geography, Teacher Jennie taught me in English and English literature. And our relationship have continued from ever since, because I have had the opportunity to graduate from being a teacher-student relationship to have a very close relationship, especially with Dr. Wheatley, because we spent a lot of time sitting on that veranda and just talking about the current events, whether it be, intellectual, whether it be the history, like you've chronicled in this book, the politics of the day, the church, whatever it is. We just sit and have a good chat. So much so that my wife would say something to me, well, I should see Teacher Jennie and Teacher Charles. I said, due for a visit. So I'm not here just, to be here. I have a long-standing relationship with both individuals and the family at large, and have shared some of Dr. Wheatley's vision for where we are as a community and how we should ensure that our writings are chronicled and we use it to pass it on, as Teacher Jennie has so eloquently put in her book. So we're here to celebrate a very important occasion in the life history of our community, and because I've had a first-hand view, if you think that I was born in the late 50s, I've watched this community also graduate from what it was to what it is today. As somebody who is a part of the formal education system, somebody who has not only grown up but continued to be an integral part of this community. So it is, a sense of pride to be here, and that Teacher Charles asked me to say a few words and to congratulate both of them on this occasion that we find ourselves at today. As Honorable Penn said, Teacher Charles will write until he can't write no more, because he have a lot in his head that he have to get on paper. He tries to encourage me to write, but I feel intimidated when I see all this good writing. So I will do the little that I could with time. So congratulations to both of you. There's a lot of work to be done. I consider them, and I'm sure somebody will challenge me on this, but I consider Teacher Charles and Teacher Jennie to be the first family of education in our community, if not in this entire country. Because when you look at Teacher Charles' bio, you will realize that he's probably the only person who have held every position in education in this country, including being the first president of the college and then the chairman of the board. And just look at his bio, and you'll recognize that he's been in education his entire life, and his contribution now to the next generation and the history of our community and our country speaks volumes. Congratulations, Teacher Charles, Teacher Jennie, Lloyd. God bless you.
So just from that, Dr. Pickering, you know what they say, behind every great man is a woman. So that's where Teacher Jennie comes in as wife and mother. But before Teacher Jennie and Lloyd, her son, come to speak next, one of the disadvantages with a packed program like this is that the chairperson doesn't get to give jokes. So, but I wanted to say something. When I read Pass It On, it reminded me of a little encounter I had with a guest, a foreigner who was at my home. So most of the remedies in Pass It On are tea-based, or what I call infusions, because that's when we talk about bush tea and these things. It's really just an infusion. So it's most of them are things that you would put hot water on and drink. So I had a foreigner once. English wasn't his first language. And when foreigners come, I like to have local drinks. So I had ginger beer, and he was wowed by that. And then, of course, I said, well, try the sorrel. And he said, well, that's nice. That's like Christmas. Where did you get that? And I said, that's a flower. And then I sent some children up for the tamarind to pick some tamarind. I said, go and pick some tamarind for him. And I said, if you want to have any more children, though, don't eat too much of it. So he tasted the tamarind, and he said, well, what do you do with it? It's so sour. I said, well, again, we make drinks. And he said, again, English isn't his first language. I get the impression that a lot of drinking goes on in this house. So, Teacher Jennie and Lloyd, can you come and give us some remarks and keep us entertained?
I have a little problem with the water. We're supposed to say certain things like glad to be here and pleased to meet you and all this kind of thing. But I ain't able to use mask. Because for those of you who cannot swim, you need to try a little of this. Start to learn to swim. You know, and I feel very badly about it, that people grow up in the Caribbean, in the sea, King, God, all about them telling me you can't swim. How you mean you can't swim? From very early, throw your children in the water, please, and make them learn to swim. And I say again, some of us couldn't, because if you lived up Long Look, you were not allowed to come down Fat Hog's Bay to swim. Why? You were too far from the protection of your family. From Long Look, come down to Fat Hog's Bay Beach, it's a long haul. Whether you like it or not, try it. It's true of King Gambia, any place like that, any of the places. We didn't because we couldn't. For some of us, it was always natural. You jump in the water and you swim. That's it. Why did I come here to do this again? I tell you, praise the Lord. My children, my people, this child has to keep shifting the mic because you know how I operate. And this book will soon land in the sea if I don't fix it good. I'm just going to go down through this thing here. There are many questions I would like to ask the folks who have now passed on. The most pressing one is, why was smoking such an important part of their lives? Smoking. today, tobacco, the smoke through the, tobacco and the cigarettes and the pipes and things like that. But smoking was a very important part in those days. And in case you think I'm talking about marijuana, cut your head off. That's not what I'm talking about. It was just a part of the community, a part of growing up at a certain age. And for me, I thought, well, the way to learn to smoke, of course, is to go out, when you're burning the heat, and you take a piece of brown paper, you twist it around, you put it to your mouth, and you pull. And all your brothers and sisters started to laugh. That thing would kill you. I cough and I cough and I cough and I cough. And mother said, oh, you think it's a woman, huh? You have a little problem. You didn't reach woman stage yet. So you're going to try it again? No, Mammy, I'm going to never do that again. As long as I live, I'll never smoke again in my whole life. That's what the experience is about. And I'm going to run around this thing. Now, in the U.S., the Virgin Islands, U.S. and British during the 30s, 40s, and early 50s, men smoked pipes openly. Men smoked pipes openly. Women smoked pipes in their homes, some secretly. Some women's pipes were short, sometimes homemade, while some pipes were easily broken since they were imported, in chalk products. The midwife who brought me into the world, my great aunt Mary Magdalene Micey, smoked a pipe. Bone setters and massagers smoked pipes. What did it do? One, it passed the time. Because nowadays people get trained so fast, You just hear they gone to hospital. Kedrick come and he looked down at one, hello? And the lady got a child. It wasn't so nowadays. Man, you were there and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting and you come back home and it's in your back and you come back. Having a baby was a big issue. No, nothing to it. What I find most interesting and for which I have no explanation is the use of smoke as a medical tool. You see? One case reported by a 77-year-old lady bears repeating. In the BVI, there was one doctor in Road Town and no more terrible roads. Her child with a persistent cough was treated as follows. Her aunt and family, midwife, blew short bursts of smoke into both sides of the baby's cloth diaper. Cloth diaper. Under both arms and under his neck. And what I thought was unique, was this thing needs further checking on. And I don't know the answers. I always do that to you. I don't know the answers to these things. You do your research in your families. If you still have a grandmother left, if you still have a great-grandmother left, do your research in your families. Pass it on. Please, pass it on. That's all I ask of you. Pass it on. Because you find that it's too much. We are losing too much. I believe in direct contact with Jesus Christ through prayer. I leave this aspect of research in my mind to the capacity to deal with those big subjects that I just talked to you about, and which you are not dealing with. You are talking some stupidness about them thing, what them old people used to do. Them thing. And I said, what do you mean by them thing? That is what saved our lives. The remedies, the way they handle things. That's what saved our lives. Pass it on. I had no idea that we would be in the situation as we are today. Look at us. Mask. Mask. What we know about mask? If you had told us about the mask, we'd have frightened because we think there's some kind of zombie coming out from somewhere. What is a mask? I have no problems with you looking on the side. They have to continue their work. But whenever I see that, I think of Guana Island. Guana Island, for me, is not what it is for you. Guana Island, for me, was hearing a boat come around that reef there. Chug, 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 chug. And you know, the Billy King was coming across. And you know, that when the Billy King came here, when they have the Oscar Chilwell and they have Walter Penn and that kind of people, they have, in addition to broom tire, they are going to bring the books that were used by the people over there. Not dirty books. They would take the books, tie them up, and then Alvanley, who was, he loved to read. He would take the books up to his house. And then I suddenly would become interested in Linden. I didn't particularly like her before. But she had these books, and these books had in living color. They were in color for you today. So the books were in color, Life magazine and those kind of things. And we're looking at them, and we're seeing pretty pictures, and we're saying, all of us did it at some point. You see those places that I am seeing in those magazines? I want to go to one of those places one of these days. Here we are. We went, we explored, we came back. And then we did what we were able to do. We passed it on. Please, please, I beg you. If you do nothing else, pass on. Do not allow our children to remain ignorant of the power that we had behind us. There was no joke times. When you get a cut behind from Willard, you were thankful. You are blessed. Blessed. When he decided to read your composition and go beyond paragraph 1, if he ever went beyond paragraph 1, you started to breathe. He reading it. Because by paragraph 1, this great teacher that had some training in Trinidad, after paragraph 1, he writes rubbish. And he didn't leave you there. Now, some teachers nowadays, the modern teachers, with all due respect to all you are going to write not good enough and leave it there. You need to go to jail. You need to go to jail. If something is not good enough, your duty is to deal with it. Bring it up. Make them do it. Dinah somewhere in here. I think she's somewhere in here. And, people like those, they know about these things. Cousin Celia know about them. These people know about people really having an interest in the children they're teaching. That's what it's all about. That's what it ought to be. That's what it ought to be. So I think for the most part, I must be finished my speech because once I start with the teachers of today, I know you have a lot of problems, people. I know you have a lot of problems. Because if I had to deal with some of the parents today, you know, who telling me, well, I am not sure he did his homework. There's one cloud to hit you against your head. You do your part, please, please do your part. Help the children, help the children, help the children. Stop collecting the government money which you ain't work for. Simple as that. Help the children. Help the children, I beg you. Help the children. All about swearing all you have. Did you know how many degrees I have? I say how many? You could say 40, I don't care. Do you know how to use your degrees? Well, you ought to know how to use the thing. I done with it, I done with it, I done with it. And I say, what did you just say? Them just can't learn. You see that said there? They just can't learn. Their head had. And I have nothing to do with it. That makes me cry. That is the time I cry. Because you have so much that you can give. Please, please give it. Now here is my child wondering if I ever gonna stop. All he does is chuckle and support me. Boss man, you think you're gonna do a little thing? Well, do a little thing there now. Whatever it is you're gonna do, but they say they mustn't make it too long, you know? I kind of want to go back that way because I told you that the hell we are staggering. But if I stagger, I can see. It's a good idea. Yeah, you don't have to worry about me, boss. I don't make it look like I, you know. Got to make it look like I could handle it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tough act to follow. But in a slightly different sense, I too would like to encourage everyone to read and use Pass It On, a treasury of Virgin Islands folk remedies. It was felt by my mother that some information regarding folk remedies needed to be cataloged and passed on for future use. This was the genesis of this effort about 8 years ago. In it, you'll find about 53 remedies that can be found readily and used quite easily. Pictures and descriptions of the uses are presented to assist the reader in their search. Finally, I want to mention two very special unsung heroes of this text. Mr. Junior Daniels, who you could see right there, is taking the pictures, aka Mango, whose photographic and desktop publishing skills were invaluable, and my cousin, Mrs. Mava Forbes, whose editorial support, too, was an invaluable resource. So with that said, I'd like to just encourage everybody to enjoy the book and enjoy this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Now, Teacher Jennie referred to Mr. Vanley, and you probably know him as Sheep, his grandson, that is. Or some people who are not from Easton probably know him as Honorable Neville Smith. And I know him as Teacher Linden's son. So all of these are rites of passage. We never said Mrs. Smith, you said Teacher Linden. So, as Dr. Pickering said, that's you have the we have the privilege to say those things because that's we all are from the enclave. So I would like to call the grandson of Mr. Vanley, Honorable Neville Smith, to say a few words as we continue. Vanley. Locally, people just say Vanley.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I told my godfather I don't know why he put me in here today. He knew I'm not much of a speaker, but but I'm happy to be here because I'm one of those who I say consider I have two parents, as in Teacher Jennie and Teacher Charles. It's like from one home to the other home. That's how I grew up. Couldn't do nothing wrong. So when I do something wrong from home, I run over there. Roll the song. But today is a special day, and I want to challenge Teacher Jennie and Godfather to write another book. You see that Eastern Methodist Church? They have a lot of history in that church. And we have a lot of students who came out of that church, and we don't know who they are. We don't know the history from that church. And I would like to see a book written about the then and now. Because I want my grandchildren, not my children, but I want my grandchildren to know how the Methodist Church was started in BVI and what all it did for us as young people as well. You see, I'm not going to be here more than 2 minutes. I'm not like the others. But you see, one of the things that we are losing, and people don't understand when we say we're losing our culture and our heritage. Our culture is in our people. We are the ones who's the culture and heritage. And we do not bring our grandchildren around the grandparents enough. We get our children and we let them do what they want to do. It wasn't so in our times. I had to go to church. I had to go to Sunday school. We were brought up in a godly home. And I think that's one of the things that we are missing right now, us being close to God. So I want to encourage everybody to make sure your children and your grandchildren, let God get in their lives. Let's get back our culture and our heritage, because that's what we have. Our culture and heritage is with God. Godfather, Jennie, I think you outdone yourself this time with these books. But once again, I'll always continue to support whatever you do, because y'all have played a very important role in my life. And I'm happy to see that you're sharing with others now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rolling right along. Thanks to technology, I'm not sure if, I think they're coming on, the grandchildren are coming from the US. Oh. Sorry about that. So we have the Minister of Education, Dr. Honorable Natalia Wheatley, who will give some remarks as well. And then that should be it for the politicians. And then we will turn to the grandchildren.
Thank you, Sister Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. I acknowledge the leader of the opposition and member for the 8th District, as well as the Deputy Speaker and Territorial at-Large member, along with all the other distinguished individuals here with us, including former legislators, Mrs. Eileen Parsons and Dr. Kedrick Pickering. I must also give a great big congratulations to the authors. I believe this, correct me if I'm wrong, Lloyd, this is your first book being authored. Give Lloyd a round of applause. Congratulations for that. And now we're looking for a book from Leanne and Al, because of course this is a family of writers.
a family of writers. And I want to say a big congratulations to Dr. Wheatley and teacher Jennie. I thought all the time was taken from the politicians where you didn't call me. These guys used all of the time already. Yes, I just want to say I'm sitting here beaming with pride. Because really, and I've been having these thoughts, you know, because of course, not too long ago, we celebrated Dr. McTavius, which Dr. Wheatley was on that documentary as well. And it really stirs up my hunger for history and my appreciation for history. And we have to recognize that we have national treasures among us. We have many national treasures. And we have to make sure we celebrate our national treasures. Now, Dr. Wheatley and teacher Jennie are national treasures. Give them a round of applause. They are national treasures. And we have other national treasures among us. I'm looking at one here, Mrs. Eileen Parsons, certainly a national treasure. And there's so many others among us who fall in that category. Now, as I said before, I've been my hunger for history, especially our local history, has been growing. I've studied history from other countries, other continents, etc. But the history of the Virgin Islands is something that it really mystifies me. It baffles me because this country, and I'm calling it a country intentionally, went through a miraculous transformation in a short period of time. And a young person such as myself, you know, I catch a little bit of things, but it, you know, by the time I came around, it was far different than it was before. Young person such as myself will never truly be able to conceptualize what the Virgin Islands was like in the 30s and the 40s and those type of times. And that's why I love the titles of the books, because we have a very rich heritage. And some of what is happening now actually happened in the past. Of course, I would have really wanted to know what was it like in the past when we had the Spanish influenza that happened over 100 years ago. And then you had the cholera outbreak and all of these different types of things. And just how did you live life back in those times? You know, a lot of persons can't appreciate that. And if you know what you've gone through, you know what you can draw on to make it through your present circumstances. And that provides some level of hope. So I love the title, Heritage and Hope. But if you want to present the hope to this current generation, you have to do what? You have to pass it on. You definitely have to pass it on. I often ask myself, well, how is it that you live so long and you had such healthy people, but you didn't have the doctors? And, well, actually, you did have doctors, whether you called it that or not. You had persons who held this ancient knowledge about how you heal sick persons. I mean, it's truly amazing. You didn't have ambulances going up and down, left and right, but yet your people were more healthy. How did you do that? I mean, the story of the Virgin Islands is really a miraculous story. And Dr. Wheatley and teacher Jennie and Lloyd, I want to thank you for taking on this very, I would say, divine responsibility to be able to present this information to persons like myself and persons in the school system and other persons who just have that curiosity and hunger to learn. Thank you for taking up that responsibility. And I often encourage others. I see my mother in the audience. My mother is a very intelligent person and a very good writer. In fact, I have to ask her to write some of my speeches sometimes for me if I really want to impress somebody. She's a wonderful scholar. And I encourage her to write. I encourage my father to write. They have so much information. And Dr. Pickering, I'm happy to hear that you have that desire, because I heard you up here and you couldn't help yourself. But every time I listen to you, you give some history. It's almost like you can't help yourself, and that is something that's going to help the next generation. So I encourage all of you to write, including Mrs. Eileen Parsons. I'm definitely waiting for that publication. I'm looking forward to that. So again, I want to say I feel honored and I feel privileged to be able to be in this position with such wonderful publications coming to the fore. And I would like to do my part to ensure that the young people are able to have access and read this type of information, and I'm going to do my part. And I join with the Honorable At-Large Member, Honorable Neville Smith, in encouraging you to keep writing. I want to hear more about Carlos, and I want to hear about what happens after 1963, perhaps maybe for the next 25 years that takes you into the 90s. I definitely would like to, I'm looking forward to that particular publication. So I would say God bless this effort. May persons truly make use of our national treasures, because what's the use of a national treasure if you don't make use of it? Read, enjoy, I certainly will. And to the authors, please continue writing. God bless you.
Thank you. I would just like to echo those words of encouragement. And again, that's true. And in the public libraries, now again, you see that Dr. Wheatley wasn't the only speaker, but others before him. The interconnectivity between the two books that I alluded to in my opening remarks. So let's turn now to the family, and through the benefit of technology, we should be able to hear from some of the grandchildren from the United States. Dr. Danielle Wheatley and her daughter, Ariana Wheatley, who was the subject of one of Teacher Jennie's books, and her daughter, and Janelle Wheatley and her children. I hope you can hear us and that we will be able to hear you. I'll turn it over to you. Janelle, is Janelle here, or are all three in the States, or is one here? Okay. All right, guys, over to you. Okay, so while we're sorting out those technical details, also coming to us from the United States is the brother of Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Edgar Leonard. Mr. Leonard, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, so we'll hear from you, and then we'll go back and see if the grandchildren have been able to connect.
Okay.
No. So I'll turn it over to you for some remarks. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everyone again. Haven't seen in a long time. Dr. Wheatley, Teacher Jennie, Alan, Lloyd, Leon, and other family members.
Can you give us a couple of minutes? They're showing a picture of someone who is not you. Now we can see you
Okay.
a little bit. If you can adjust the computer camera a little bit downward, perfect. There, now we see your handsome face, and you can continue.
Yeah, too kind. You're too kind. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everyone again. I haven't seen in decades. So nice to see you. Dr. Wheatley, Teacher Jennie, Alan, Lloyd, Leon, and other family members. Thanks for the invite. It's an honor. Dr. Wheatley, congrats on penning another great read. And to Teacher Jennie and Lloyd, I haven't read your book, Pass It On as yet, but I'm sure it's equally as impressive. Okay. I have to offer an apology right now, though. My initial focus was on Dr. Wheatley. I don't want you guys to think I'm biased for my brother. But I haven't read Pass It On yet. But I will. Okay. So my focus is going to be on Dr. Wheatley and his book. He has had a long and distinguished service delivering career. And continuing in that vein, Heritage and Hope, his third book, provides an invaluable service to the community. I have had the distinct pleasure of reviewing it, and Dr. Wheatley's raw and unvarnished narrating of growing up in a tiny hamlet enclave of Young and his rich cultural experience from 1938 to 1963 was intriguingly engaging and awe-inspiring. Undoubtedly, it took dedication, energy, expertise, and sacrifice to pen this book. However, it was a priceless effort, for it is the wordy read that snags and captivates the reader, resulting in them vicariously living the cultural experience. Simply, it's a scintillating read. Russian Graph Pop is an excellent time investment with a high yield return, with a greater understanding of VI culture, history, and heritage. I'm looking forward to continue to read on the cultural experience in more memoirs. Moreover, Mary Durant Wheatley is resting peacefully and looking on proudly. Best wishes, be vigilant, well, and safe in these challenging times. God bless you.
Thank you. For the grandchildren, are you able to hear us now? Okay, so we'll move on until the technology is sorted out. And we also have next John Wesley.
I couldn't see. No, I just.
Okay,
Yeah, but I just think
so Mr. John Wesley Forbes, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, if the others can mute their mics, we can then get or hear our remarks from Mr. John Wesley Forbes. Welcome.
Thank you, and pleasant greetings to the honored guest and the Wheatley family. My congratulations to Dr. Wheatley. I'm just learning today of Mrs. Wheatley's book, so I have to get up to speed and purchase a copy. Similar to Dr. Pick, I was a student at the BVI High School in the early 70s, and both Dr. Wheatley and Mrs. Wheatley were my teachers. Dr. Wheatley taught me commerce and Mrs. Wheatley English language. I have tremendous respect for both of them, and the early experience I had in high school has been, they've been lifelong throughout my career. As I read their memoir, I was transported back to my childhood, and learning about Dr. Wheatley's daily life, his family dynamics, his friends, and the village James Young, where all this was happening. It's accurate to say that this narrative is relatable to many of our personal experiences. I was also fascinated by the candor in which Dr. Wheatley shared his innermost thoughts, his doubts, vulnerabilities, as he navigated his adolescence. After reading quite a few of the stories, I think I was highly amused at the one when he started his career as a teacher in West End. Some of the students there decided they were going to intercept, and I think Dr. Wheatley used the word ambush. They were going to ambush him on his lunch hour. Well, I'm not going to issue a spoiler alert because I want you to read the full story. But let's just say that at that very early age, Dr. Wheatley established himself as, and I quote, a force to be reckoned with. And perhaps more importantly, from that incident, Dr. Wheatley demonstrated exceptional adeptness in managing interpersonal relations, and I show that was critical throughout his illustrious career. In closing, I just want to say I really enjoyed the Heritage and Hope book. Um, it's definitely on my gift list for the holidays, and I'm going to add Mrs. Wheatley's book also. And like many others, I'm excited and look forward to additional volumes from Dr. Wheatley. So on that, I will reserve the rest of my time. I think I've met the chairperson's wish, and cheers and happy holidays to all.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'm assuming that okay, so we have some of the grandchildren here. If you guys can hear me, can you say?
Hello.
Very good. So if you can now all unmute, and we'll turn it over to you, and Janelle she'll work her way back up. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon. I would first like to apologize for the delay. Blame it on the time difference. We're 1 hour behind of you guys. I also like to apologize for my sister not being here. She's at work, but we would like to congratulate our grandparents on this release. We are truly grateful to be a part of the Charles and Jennie legacy, and we ask that you guys will continue to show them, your unwavering support, and we hope that everybody enjoys this release.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else? Or just you? Janelle, do you want to say? Okay, Janelle is saying that you spoke very eloquently for her, so thank you very much. You want to say something to you?
Congratulations. Say congratulations, Granny and Grandfather. He's shy here. You gonna say it? I'll buy you a new box.
How much?
Say congratulations, Granny and Grandfather. Congratulations.
How much a box?
50.
How much?
Okay, congratulations.
What's it?
Congratulations. Say congrats.
Congrats,
Granny and grandfather.
Granny and Grandfather,
And I love you both.
and I love you both.
Now he's asking for the mic back. All right, so we've come to a juncture where, let me make sure I haven't left out anyone else. I just wanted to, before Dr. Wheatley comes up, I just wanted to say a few words about the book. Now, the book is titled Heritage and Hope, Finding My Purpose in Virgin Islands Culture, 1938 to 1963. But when you read the book, you will see that the book actually gives historical accounts well prior to 1938. So one of the most fascinating things for me is that the book, it gives the history of a hurricane because it was seen in Carlos's mother's eyes, recounting it. And I think that's on page 111. It gives the history of a hurricane that took place in 1867. Yes, I think 1867. Now, when you read that, I'm sure you'll be struck, as I was, the similarities with Hurricanes Irma and Maria. There was total devastation, and it was uncanny when I read it because it took 2 days before assistance came, just like Hurricanes Irma and Maria. And there was a whole lot of confusion. I mean, like the gentleman said, Wesley, I'm not going to give a spoiler alert, but that was it. And the part of it that I found humorous, you have to be able to laugh at yourselves, but there's an excellent letter in here that's printed verbatim from who would have been at the time the equivalent of governor, and then the UK person responding. But the book is a history book, but it's a story book. It's not history as a history book textbook. It's not dry. It is a story. So it is really easy to read, and you are really going to be cracked up and laughing when you read it. But everybody's different. Everybody will be react differently. But when I read this letter, and I love how it was written, but apart from that, you have to have a thick skin to appreciate the part of this letter that I found most amusing. But the part of it is, so there's total devastation, and the governor is kind of saying, well, it's just a day. It's kind of difficult to assess really the extent of the damage, but trust me, it's really bad. And but we'll get sort of statistics and former things later on. But there's a sentence he says here. He says, I have no desire. Let me start the sentence. He said, I feel most profoundly misery of so many individuals and families, but I am sure that Your Excellency will recognize the utter impossibility of immediately supplying a remedy. And then this is the part. I have no desire to avert the exercise of a just or generous sympathy. But everyone acquainted with the West Indies must know what gross fabrications the Negro will make where he entertains the hope of gaining bread without exertion. No, that's why I said you have to have a thick skin, because that was the part. And interestingly, when I gave the letter to my husband to read, he couldn't do the book. It was my job. But when I read this letter and I read that part, I know my husband so well. I said, read this letter all the way back. I don't know where Teacher Charles found it, how he got it. But he read it, and I said, "You saw that sentence in there?" I saw, and then he continued laughing, and we saw the same sentence, but that was a sentence that stood out for me, and I liked how it was Edgar, Mr. Leonard, who said that Teacher Charles was raw in his book, and I found that word to be a very apt description. And then Mr. Forbes went back to say he didn't hold back anything, and it was written with candor. And you're going to laugh, and it's not all perfect. Again, no, I don't want to give a spoiler alert, but we see a different Carlos than we know here. We see a Carlos who's like me and misunderstood and correcting the teachers. How dare a student correct the teacher? And Carlos is threatened with suspension. And you know what Carlos says? He doesn't lie down and, like Lloyd or Leon. He puts his fists up, he rolls up his sleeves, and he says, "If you think you bad, suspend me." So this is the raw candor that you're going to see. Nothing is held back, but in it, we're going to get an understanding of history. I know when I was small, people washed by hands, and I know about washing, doing 2 rinses and 1 in hot water, and the Antiguans would put 1 in blue, and things went through 2 washes, 2 rinses, and then a scrub board. But, his book tells you, for example, that this was an all-day affair, and then they had to be starched. And I didn't know that this starch business took so long. So at the end of the day, they're finished with that. They're gossiping and singing along, but the work isn't done. They then had to go home and iron. So it really puts things into perspective. Again, I grew up with my grandmother. She would plait tire, but it explains the process the tire goes through. So by the time I, as a little girl, see the tire, and then, some of them had died, I had no appreciation that this was the laborious task that it went through. So I think other speakers spoke about that sort of thing. So let's hear now from the man himself, Dr. Wheatley, on his book. Dr. Wheatley.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to have to be very brief because this is a restaurant, and this is a restaurant, and I believe we are holding up the preparation for the guest. We've gone a little, so I am going to have to be very brief. I would like to thank everybody who has spoken and contributed to the program, and whether you were physically present or you were virtual. To me, this has been a very rewarding experience, and that's how I wanted it to be, a family experience. And I hope that everybody feels part of the family, because that's what I think we are. We are all one family, one big family. I just want to, what I must say, I have to cut out a lot of what I would have said because of time. I know some people will say why I chose this spot. Well, I chose this spot because I spent my first few years just across the road on that estate where the Eastern Clinic is with my mother's stepfather. My mother was from Salt Island, and her stepfather owned that estate and lived on it. So I lived there for the first few years. So this place has sentimental things for me. And that's why one of the reasons why I wrote this book, Red Bay, and gave the whole story of this area here, which is called Red Bay. And I would like you to think about reading it. That was one of the reasons, because this is sentimental to me. It's a historical landmark. It's another one. And it is a place where I believe piece of our heritage begins, especially since oral tradition is not as it used to be. Now, the book that I wrote, Finding My Purpose, I was hoping that I would be able to just crack a little bit of the heritage, which I happen to experience from older folks in various ways. And I want you to see this as a bona fide piece of work. It's not fiction, it's non-fiction. It's a memoir. A memoir has to be non-fiction, and what I say there, even if it sounds like story, like it's fiction, it is not fiction. Poor Carlos had a rough time. And I'm going to just say one or two things about Carlos. On page 57 in the book, you will see that Carlos got in trouble. Carlos loved to play with matches. And you could buy matches in those days by the 2-cent worth. You used to call them knockabout matches, and you could scratch them on any hard surface. So Carlos got 2 cents one day, and he bought 2-cent knockabout matches. And he walked about proudly looking for some piece of, some little heap where he could scratch a match and light a fire. So he saw this hillside, brown from top to bottom, dry grass. He said, this is good. So boy, he scratched a match down at the bottom of the road and he threw it in the grass. And the fire raced up the hill like it had gasoline on it. And the whole place, I can tell you where that is if you want to know in secret. The whole place became one big fire. Carlos got frightened and he ran. As he was running, a woman said, "You little vagabond, you are going straight to tell your mother what you did." And she jumped from her home and she ran in front of him and went and told his mother what he had done. And his mother liked to tan hides. And poor Carlos got his hide, got a proper tanning that evening for lighting that. And he never, ever after did that. But the funny thing about it, the land belonged to his uncle. And his uncle came to him and said, "Thank you very much for burning the grass for me, because I was going to burn it. But I'm going to warn you, stop playing with matches." So it was a happy ending for him. The other thing that I would like to draw your attention to is page 74, 76. Bullying. Now, bullying in school was a normal part of growing up. And especially when you didn't have a bigger brother to fight for you, as I didn't, you were in trouble. So I got in a class with some boys, big 14-year-old boys, and I was about 7 years. And I was held hostage for 1 year by those boys. They bullied me for 1 year. And what was that bully? I must do their work for them before I do mine in the class. And, there was no way out. You had to do it. There was no teacher you could go to. No teacher couldn't solve that problem because you had to fight your way along the road. So I was held hostage for a year until I got out of the class with those boys. So I just wanted to draw your attention not to the fact of life. We hear about bullying today. It's not new. And I just wanted to, I don't want to give you too much, just to think about that. But God with hope, I would just like to use a quote from Goodall and Abrams' book, Hope. Hope is what enables us to keep going in the face of adversity. It is what we desire to happen, but we must be prepared to work hard to make it so. Now, I quote that because those words adequately describe what I felt and how I felt in an environment that was intellectually patched by the forces within the Leeward Islands Federation. Carlos's combat against those forces pushed him to reach to the top. That was the challenge in which he grew up and worked. So I hope you'll find the book entertaining, enlightening, and preservative. Thank you, and enjoy the experience.
Thank you very much for that. And before we close, can I just call on Miss Judith Vanterpool to give the vote of thanks, and then I'm assuming that the books will then be available for sale right after that. Ms. Vanterpool. 2 minutes to you as well.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I don't think my minute has started as yet. I would not single out people, but I'll just say I acknowledge all the protocol that has been established. I will say when I started thinking of what I'm going to say at an occasion like this to give the vote of thanks, I felt teary-eyed, I felt proud, I felt humble, I felt that these two people have a special engine that keeps them going. And I think, help me with the Bible there, Pastor Keith. When Elisha or Elijah asks for the mantle, I always mix up the two names, but I'm asking for the mantle. Elisha asked for it. So I will ask you this afternoon to leave your mantle with me. I'm not saying you're going anywhere. So don't even think about that, please. I can't handle it. I looked at heritage and hope, and it started out with the quotation, "Nothing stamped with the divine image and likeness was sent into the world to be trodden on and degraded." And I have to get my glasses. Yes, imputed by the fellows. And Dr. Wheatley and Mrs. Wheatley, two people whom I cherish and admire, have passed that. They've conquered that in their work for the territory, not just in writing, but in several ways. You may wonder why I'm here today. I'm here as a friend and maybe a stepchild. When I came from Seacoasby School, I'll tell you all a little thing. It's better for me to say it than Jen. I was a hungry little girl with nothing but good manners and a brain. And that woman sitting there fed me throughout class 5. Jen, I publicly thank you again. She can tell you the story, but I don't want to tell the story today. It's not a good story. Heritage for you, Miss Parsons, and I thought of you and wondered if you'd be here, reference the prayer meetings where the people will move to the rhythm of the music and they would say, and it was said that they were licking out their sins. I remember a previous conversation with Miss P. Beat me when I'm done, Miss P. Miss B said she went to the Sankey prayer meeting, but not a soul was falling down and licking. But it's documented there, Miss P, that it used to happen. And then page 193, I love the quotations. Do something today that your future will thank you for. Do something today that your future will thank you for. We see it evidenced. Dr. Wheatley and Mrs. Wheatley, we thank you. We thank you for leaving something for us. I'd like now to turn to the honored guests, to the chairperson, Lisa Penn-Lettsome. We thank you. Reverend Glasgow, your invocation, your words are well received. The whole village, Mrs. Jacinth Wheatley, Dr. Kedrick Pickering, Honorable Marlon Penn, the Honorable Natalia Wheatley, Godchild, Neville Smith. We thank you. Now, it's difficult to say, bring congratulations to the two books at the same time. So I had to do a little separation. I heard Mrs. Penn refer many times to the fact that the two books are linked. And as I scan through, that happens too. I see the same thing. Do something today, I like to repeat, that your future will thank you for. Pass It On will be a pass-on book. Medicine is not a myth in the Virgin Islands. We just have to know the exact uses and the timing. Mrs. Wheatley, are you putting a disclaimer out as COVID medicine? If you don't, Dr. Pickering is right here to let you know that take the vaccine, man. Y'all didn't hear him? Y'all take the vaccine. So I have taken my vaccinations, my 2 vaccines, Dr. Pickering. But tell you the truth, I drinking a little bush medicine. Infusion, I'm corrected. But that doesn't sound right. You have to say bush medicine. Thank you, Lisa. In Pass It On, there are some gurus that we need to mention. We have Ilva Foy, Lettsome. I'm sorry, Dr. Lettsome. She will be WhatsApping me tonight. from wherever she is, right? Something happened, right? And then we have Rosa Stout Lettsome. She's still alive, right? Nelsima Smith and more. They're already gone ahead. So Mrs. Wheatley is just passing their work on. We have also some remedies in the book that I didn't know could be drunken. They have the Feely Bush. I see Massey there fanning. Massey, you need to get some Feely Bush tea. I'm not going to say what that is for. No, you have to get your book. The Senna is for me. The Yellow Love is for the people who came in today and couldn't manage their steps. You need to get that book and start right away. And the thank yous continue to the grandchildren, Mr. Edgar Leonard, the brother, who is a brother and the brother-in-law and uncle, Mr. John Wesley Forbes, a past student, and Mr. Dorian Hodge for technical support. Mango, you were thanked already, but I'll add you in. You always do a very good job. And I'll ask you to put your hands together for the authors and presenters, Dr. Charles Wheatley and Mrs. Wheatley, and of course, Mr. Lloyd Wheatley, who is up and coming. I conclude by saying you have surely done something today that your future, the future, the future will thank you for.
Thank you very much. So that's fine. I'm partial towards women and young people. I said you refer to Lloyd as up and coming, but he has up and came. I don't know why you refer to him as up and coming. Lloyd, you're not over 50? So now it's gotten cool and we're all comfortable, but it's time to buy your book and have a little eat and leave. I will just wrap up my bit by saying that I saw a quote in Miss Wheatley's book that I want to end on and just use it differently. What the quote says is that God gave us herbs to heal the nation, and of course, Kedrick Pickering like to refer to us as this little nation, but to heal the world. And I just wanted to take that a bit further and say he has given us culture to heal the nation. So we all have, they were like that familiarity and so forth, and let us keep it and preserve it. It's part of our identity. Let us share it. Let us pass it on. Thank you for coming, and please buy generously. It's Christmas.
Dr. Wheatley, them boys were troubling Carlos. I want to wait them on from Lang. Look. I had a suspicion. So this language thing going on away now. Nice job.
Teacher Jennie sit down beside